Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Um, Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook. It is called the Galt Cookbook. This was published in the 1890s in an area of southwestern Ontario called Galt. This was a pivotal cookbook in Canadian cookbooks. It's an early example of a community cookbook, fundraising cookbook um, that shows the Canadian experience. And the recipe we're going to do today is sort of an outlier in that it's called frijoles compuestos, compound beans. And frijoles is spelled with a Y instead of a J, which kind of shows an interesting point to me, I think. It says to start out by soaking white beans. So these are white pea beans that I've soaked. They would have been very common in this part of the world at that time. So I'm going to put them into a pot and we're going to cover them with water. Maybe a little bit more. Put a lid on. Okay, so lid on, bring this up to a boil it for about an hour until the beans start to soften, and then we move on. What drew me to this recipe is that it's one of those recipes that's an outlier. It has a very, as in 2024, looking back at it, it has a very Spanish-Mexican type influence to it. It is definitely an outlier in this book. Most of the recipes in here are, even though they're Canadianized, even though they show a sense of place, they are decidedly very much English recipes, British recipes. Some of them are heavily influenced by Germany, given its geographic location. A lot of towns around Galt were settled heavily by Germans. So much so that many of the towns around Galt had German names up until around, World War II, when a lot of the names changed to more English names. That's part of our history. So I find it interesting that this recipe ends up here, and I'd like to know who Mrs. Kynoch was and what was her influence in sharing this recipe. Obviously proud of the recipe because she put it forward into this community cookbook, had her name on it. She was very proud of it. I'm interested to see how it turns out. I think it's going to be great. Okay, the beans are done and most of the water has boiled off, so I'm not going to have to pour any water away. Meanwhile, in this frying pan, maybe a little bit hotter, I've got some chopped up leftover ham, and I'm supposed to fry it, and I guess just to get some browning on the outside. So fry that off. Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. So that goes into the ham. There's some brown in the bottom of that pan. I'm going to deglaze the bottom of that pan with a little bit of the tomato liquid. So I'm supposed to put the tomatoes in. Just scrape up some of that fond, get the flavor. Okay, so get all that flavor from the pan into the pot with the beans. I'm supposed to put in chopped up onion and celery, salt, and pepper. Now for the tomatoes, it said canned tomatoes. I have made a giant assumption that you probably, if you're living in this area in the 1890s, you were making home canned tomatoes, canning your own tomatoes every fall. And based on that, what my family did is a canned tomato that was a stewed tomato. So you took your tomatoes, you stewed them with some celery and onion, and then you canned them. So that's what I've used in here, kind of home canned tomatoes. Now, I'm supposed to put a lid on this and what does it say? Leave on the fire at the back of the... Leave on fire until thickness wanted. So I'm going to say probably an hour or two on a low flame. Yes, chicken. Yes, chicken. I know. It's tomatoes. You don't like tomatoes. No, you don't. Okay, here we go. This is looking really good. Smells fantastic too.
What do we have today, Glenn? Beans.
Let's get to the right section. Frijoles compuestos.
Frijoles compuestos.
Compuestos.
Compuestos. Oh, with
Com-
a P?
Yeah,
Compuesto.
compound beans. Although frijoles spelled with a Y, because you would probably spell it phonetically. You wouldn't know necessarily that it was a J. Oh, that's a really good bean.
That's really nice. Mm-hmm. And it's got such a clean, simple flavor.
Yes. Yeah. Unlike
Thank you, Miss Kynoch.
Kynoch. Unlike the beans that my family would have been eating in rural Ontario in the 1890s, which would have been heavy with molasses and, yeah,
Yes.
and super overcooked, like baked for hours. And
then you got to wonder what inspired Mrs. Knock to,
how did this recipe
do these things, right?
Yeah, how did this recipe end up in Galt?
Yeah.
You know, very small rural Ontario town in the 1890s. How did it get there? Because it's fantastic.
I like it very much.
And what is the origin of this recipe? So if you are from a background where something like this is made in your family, tell us how you make it to get it to this point. Like,
Really, there's no new way to make food. Someone out there makes this and eats this on a regular basis. Just because it's new to us, we certainly didn't invent it.
but that's what I mean. There's probably a long family tradition of people who are making this. What is it? Where did it come from? Please.
I'm liking it, though.
Tell us. My bowl is empty.
Almost. I got 2 bites left. All right.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. You're still here. Since you're still here, let me tell you about Give Hope Wings. Last year, 2023, I flew in a charity fundraiser called Give Hope Wings that raises money for a charitable organization called Hope Air. And you, my viewers, donated $27,000 and really changed some lives, made a difference. You made a difference in people's lives. So Hope Air is a charity that works in Canada, and they provide free flights and lodging to people that live in the more remote parts of Canada if they need to get to somewhere like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, something like that, a larger urban center, in order to receive some sort of care, cancer treatment, different types of operations, that sort of thing, that can't be done in their own community. The healthcare is covered by the Government of Canada. It is free. It's part of our universal healthcare. But getting yourself to that healthcare can be an incredible burden for people who live in those more remote communities where driving isn't practical or driving isn't possible, because we have a lot of communities in Canada that are fly in or boat in only. So that's where Hope Air comes in. They pair private pilots like myself with small aircraft to fly to these communities, pick people up, and bring them either directly to the larger urban center or to a larger urban center where commercial traffic is available. Commercial flights are available. And then from there, they cover the commercial flight to the larger center. Something that I definitely believe in. Having lived in some of those smaller communities in my younger years, I know how difficult it is, how isolating it is. And that you cannot get out when you need to sometimes. So I would encourage you, please, if you can, I will drop the link below in the description box. Take a look into Hope Air, and if you're able to, please help out and donate. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.